Whiskey Jason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American in Germany tasting rare and exotic whiskeys. Today I have That Boutique Whiskey Company, not always rare but very unique. This is distilled at FEW Spirits, very good, in Evanston, Illinois by Chicago. And this is bottle number 54 of 67. So very, very rare is what my excuse is going to be for this. This is batch number 1, by the way. There's a batch number 2. This was actually came out in 2014. Batch number 2 came out in 2016, and batch number 3 came out in 2000, of course, 18. Batch 1, as I mentioned before, had 67 bottles. Batch 2 had a total of 275 bottles, and batch number 3 had a total of 72. Nope, I got my numbers wrong. 27. 27 bottles. That's nothing. All right. So we have a guy named Paul Heltko. His grandparents, or his grandfather, was actually a brewer. And during the Second World War, the evil Nazis took away his brewery from him, put him in a concentration camp there in the Czech Republic area. And he was one of the very few people that survived. He came back, emigrated to the States, and one of his wish was always to have that brewery back. Well, Paul Heltko, H-L-E-T-K-O, sorry if I mispronounced your name there. He was a patent lawyer. He had tried to be a guitarist. He tried to have a record label, which worked out for a few years, I guess. And as a patent lawyer, one of his biggest dreams was to be creative. He says his dream was to start in the morning with nothing and end up with something unique in the evening. Well, that's actually one of the best descriptions I know of making spirits. So what did he do is he decided to have a grain-to-glass distillery. He found his home, he found the school of his children, and in between, basically halfway there was this old garage, might have been used for some illegal auto tuning or whatever else beforehand. And he found it, he was able to acquire it later on, and then he went to city council and said, hey, I know the temperance movement was very, very important here. Frances Elizabeth Willard, F.E.W, by the way. Maybe there's a connection to the name, maybe not. Maybe it's just a coincidence. Maybe it's not a mass product. Maybe it's just a product of a very few different bottles every day, week, or year. He went to city council and said, I would love to have a distillery here, but we need to repeal these age-old rules that are in the book. And they looked at him and said, great idea. What can we do to help you? And he went home and was like, I was hoping they said no. And so he was in dozens, and maybe a few dozen more city hall meetings and so on before finally all the laws were repealed. That's what this says here. Batch 1 repealed. So on the front we have Michael Vacherin. He's from Maverick Drinks. I guess that's the guy who actually did That Boutique Whiskey and Masters of Malt and so on. They were actually bought out now by a big boy. And they were able to bottle this. In the background we see Paul here making his grain to glass whiskey, just like he does every day. All right, so this is supposed to be a wheated whiskey. There's not that much information online about it. There's this one website, That Boutique Whiskey Company, that says something about the 67 bottles that we have here. 0.5 milliliters, so half a liter. 70 euros is what they ran at around 60 pounds, 70 euros, $80. Would you pay that for a not even 2-year-old whiskey from FEW Spirits? Don't think so. All right, so I'm going to compare it to something which is also very unique. This is Brooklyn 77 Wheat, New York wheat whiskey, aged in American oak barrels. And how old is it? 360 days. Barely made the 1-year mark. They both had about the same type of wax on it. The only thing about the Brooklyn 77 bottle, which was really cool, is the wax was much softer and there was a nice little thread in there. And you pulled it and you cut the wax, and they did a great job here of doing that. It was so much fun opening this bottle. Here it was just, I can show you. The wax just kind of all just disintegrated here and just tiny little pieces. The whole floor here is full of little chunks of black wax. It's worse than any Booker's. that I've had for a long time. And of course, here even the lid came off, so who knows? It might be too cold. Who knows? All right. I had something from Few. It was called Flaming Lips. It was a homage. It was actually a special whiskey for a rock band in that area up there in Illinois. They get their barrels from Minnesota. Why Minnesota? Because the growing season is so short that the rings are very, very tight. So usually the dark rings are the wintertime and the lighter rings of the tree are the summertime. If you count them, you can see how many years old the tree is by counting how many winters it actually survived. Now in Minnesota, of course, everything's compressed. As I like to say, in Minnesota, it starts in October, snowing, and it ends in May. And so you basically have June, July, September, August, and then June, July, August, September. 4 months of growing season. The rest you have snow. So that's the worst part about being up in the north. At least that was where I was born, up in Pennsylvania. Now this is a lot sweeter. There's a little bit more of a cinnamon in there. That wheated part of it really comes through. This is a wheat whiskey. Over here in Germany, we'd call it a corn, more of a type of vodka type of schnapps. This is very interesting. That's a little bit of the vanilla, the caramel from the barrel. Nice barrel usage here, in both cases. That boutique is famous always for this nice little drawings here. And it says, often taken from minuscule parcels of forgotten stock or lost stock. None of our bottles carry an age statement. That's not true. It might have been true back in 2014, but I know it's definitely not true today. I've seen that boutique whiskey with 30 plus age statements on it, especially with that old stuff port, whatever that was. Yeah? All right. And the nose, this wins. It's softer, it's smoother, it's a little bit better. I have butterscotch that's very artificial. I have a little bit of a buttery butterscotch. I have even a little bit of a pine moment going on here. And a sweetness, a very underlying type of corn syrup moment. Maybe even a little bit of maple syrup in there. Not the artificial good stuff, but the expensive real stuff. I like Aunt Jemima. I'm sorry. Young, green, metallic. Not at all good. Give it a moment, it calms down, and then you have a rooibos type of tea coming through. African type of tea. You have a little bit of a cinnamon coming through. You have a little bit of a wheated sweetness coming through. A little bit of a molasses even. The finish is nice. The spirit itself is young and harsh. Going over to the Brooklyn 77 whiskey, named 77 because that's the name of the building that is actually made in. So I think that's kind of cool. So Brooklyn, I call it Brooklyn, New York, yeah. So over here we just have a young whiskey that is also wheated, that is trying to pull as much out of it as possible from those barrels. Now it starts off nice and then gets a little bit of a bitter type of twang. That woodiness, that wheatiness kicks in. It turns into a tiny bit of birch tree stick. Take a stick from a birch tree, take off the bark, and then you have left over that little bit of a greenness moment, and that's what I'm getting here. The finish is here much, much better. It starts off better, but towards the end, it really doesn't do its name any justice, unfortunately. 3-4 drops in here. A little bit of a cucumber dill. More of the bread and butter pickles my grandmother used to make. There's a minute there. The water does help to get rid of a little bit of that metallic moment. It does dilute it down a little bit. It's still not great. I'm going to give this, I gave it a D plus in my German video. I'm going to give it a C minus in English. C minus minus D plus plus. 1, buy it. 2, you can buy it. 1 is why haven't you bought it? 2 is buy it. 3, you can buy it. 4, you don't have to buy it. And 5, why was this even made? So A, B, C, D, F. So this is more of a D plus plus. This is something that if you're really looking for something unique for your shelf, go for it. If you want to open it up and enjoy it, nah. Buy something else. I don't know. You can get almost 2 bottles of this, a Woodford Reserve Distiller Select for 1 bottle of this. Crazy, isn't it? Rare, exotic, exclusive, single barrel. That boutique whiskey company. I love a lot of their bottlings. Most of the bottlings are almost a guarantee for great products, except for the American bourbons. What they're doing is they're going to these young distilleries and saying, give us something. And they give them something, and it's not great. They can't get anything from Wild Turkey. They won't get anything from Woodford Reserve. They don't get anything from Jim Beam. They don't get anything from Jack Daniels. They get it from these craft distillers. And these craft distillers, at least back in 2014, that's 5 years ago, they were still learning the ropes, to put it very gently. All right. Whiskey Jason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American, saying D++, value for money, D minus. Don't even think about it. I don't know. It's 67 bottles. You won't find anyone. Anyways, Whiskey Jason, thank you very much for watching. Like, subscribe, tell others about this crazy American over here tasting things you've never ever seen and probably can never buy. And, tell others. Thank you. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, my videos are published. Bye-bye.